Fish forums are awash with people joking about multiple tank syndrome. This is how I think you can overcome your addiction to tanks. You see, I don't think that multiple tank syndrome is an addiction to buying tanks, wanting new gear or being desperate to try out a new escape style. In my opinion, multiple tank syndrome is an addiction to wanting more fish. But having more fish will always come at the expense of more tanks. It's a catch-22. I think the answer to multiple tank syndrome is twofold. Have a long-term plan for the fish you want to keep, and always have one more tank than you need. Now I hear you, I'm telling you that the cure for multiple tank syndrome is having more tanks. What the hell am I talking about? It sounds like I'm saying that the cure for my addiction to Snickers is to buy a multi-pack of Snickers. What I'm trying to convey is that you need to find the balance between having fish that you want to keep and having the room to experiment with new scapes, new biotypes, new filtration, random DIY projects, breeding programs, or whatever your fish keeping passion is. What I've learned is that by always having one spare tank waiting for the next project, I always have the distraction of a new pottering project, but it doesn't afford me the space to buy whatever fish I like and go crazy. And more fish equals more tanks. Take my fish purchasing over the last year. The last fish I bought was Bertie Betta. That was about 4 months ago. Before that, it was the Ambuna for the main tank earlier in the year. And through all that time, I've always had an empty tank or a work in progress. Once I set up a new tank, the fish get rotated into new setups, and one tank is designated as the next project. I get the enjoyment of seeing my fish in a new environment, and often in a different assortment, but I also have a new project to plan for. I found an equilibrium where I don't constantly crave another tank, and that was achieved by not always getting new fish. Now granted, for some of you this might sound ridiculous. A guy with 5 tanks tells you he's cured multiple tank syndrome by only having 4 in operation, and I can see why that would seem crazy. Of course you're content. You've got 5 tanks, I hear you cry. What I'm trying to say is that your fish will outlive your impatience on most occasions, and if you get into this hobby, you have to be prepared to be patient. When I first started back in the hobby, I knew that my dream one day would be to have an African cichlid tank, and I've achieved that in part with my Ambuna tank. But it was a waiting game, and because of the tank size, it's not even a fully realised dream yet. I can't have bigger Malawis in the tank, and I'm going to have to be patient and fully realise that dream when we move to a bigger house. I think it is the journey from my first ever community tank to the Ambuna tank that explains what I'm trying to say the best. In the early days, I made all the classic purchasing mistakes. I saw something in the shop, it said community on the label, I liked the look of it, and all of a sudden, I'm back home acclimatizing a new fish. Before I knew it, I had a community of African, Asian, South American fish that I sort of cobbled together. And then after the initial frenzy, the long-term planning and realization of my mistakes happened. I worked out what I would have to redistribute into new tanks, and at what stage I would have enough tank space to actually have the Ambuna tank. The harsh reality was it all ultimately hinged on a half a dozen Corydoras. I knew they were the oldest fish and that they were the only fish I had left in the community tank that needed the footprint size of my main tank. As they sadly started to pass away, they also became the key that unlocked my ability to rotate my fish and enjoy the process of having a main feature tank and a bunch of project tanks. Now, a lot of you might be thinking that this scenario will never be the same for you because your aspirations might be completely different to mine, but I think the lesson is relevant to everyone. Never, ever, ever overstock your fish tanks and always allow yourself room for manoeuvre. Lastly, I can see the argument from the pure fish people who care much less about having spare tanks for aquascape projects. They probably want more tanks in order to experience and enjoy more types of fish. For those, I simply say there are too many species of fish for any one fish room. The hobby is not going anywhere, and learning to be patient and wait for the right time to get a new fish is not only a good discipline to learn, but it's also best for the fish as well. As a result of patience, you'll give due consideration to the environment your fish need and be able to enjoy your fish in the knowledge that you are taking the best care of them. So, how do I think you can cure multiple tank syndrome? Be patient. Always have a spare tank in mind to break down for the next project. Research your fish and have a long-term plan for the fish you'd like in the future, and never buy a fish on a whim. 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 And never buy a fish on a whim.